Hello, welcome to the Central Texas Leadership Forum with Jonathan Shobra, Tom Glass, and Nubia Devine. Due to recent redistricting, these three candidates are running in districts that are open seats. We are here today to get to know these candidates better. Ms. Nubia Devine, tell us a little bit about your district.
So District House 19 encompasses Burnett County, Blanco County, Kendall County, and Gillespie County, and actually 1/5 of Travis County.
The Hill Country.
Yes, Hill Country.
All right, Mr. Shobra, tell us a little bit about your district.
My name is Jonathan Shobra. I'm running in House District 52. So this is everything in Williamson County that's east of I-35. And then at Williams Drive, it goes west from 35 all the way over to 183, comes back down, and then comes back east towards on Ronald Reagan Boulevard and Sam Bass Road.
All right, Mr. Tom Glass, tell us about your district.
I'm with HD 17, which after redistricting includes Caldwell County, Burleson, Lee, Milam, and Bastrop counties. Those are counties that are south and east of Austin and Williamson County.
Thank you very much. We're just going to ask a few questions here today for our listeners here. What are the top issues affecting your district and the state of Texas that you want to address, Mr. Glass?
There's two big themes in my campaign. One is everything we hold dear is under assault from D.C. And when everything you hold dear is under assault, you need to be as creative as you can be in resisting that. I've been thinking about that for a long time, and we need to push back on D.C. with every tool we have. We need to unite Texans to start standing up to secure the rights of Texans. The second big issue that I hear when I'm block walking in the district is growth, primarily coming out of Austin. And it's also coming out of Williamson into Milam County, Jonathan, and it's coming from College Station Bryan over into Burleson County as well. And what they're telling me is that property taxes are going through the roof because the values of the properties are going through the roof as people move into the district and because of inflation. And that we've got to get, they're saying we're going to lose our homes if if we don't get this thing under control soon. They're also, my district is ground zero for the water wars in Texas. That growth in Texas is creating a problem, and we have an irreplaceable aquifer underneath, or aquifers underneath our district. And if we don't do something soon, some of the people in my district have their water levels dropping by hundreds of feet after they've started shipping it out of the district with big pipes and big wells. So those are some of the big issues that we're facing.
Okay. Ms. Devine, let me read the question again. What are the top issues affecting your district and the state of Texas that you want to address?
Well, I think we are all very concerned about what's happening in the federal government. We know it's affecting all the way to Texas. I think we understand that we have the biggest influence we can have is local. And so obviously we have, my whole district is very concerned about the border. Mm-hmm. Of course, continues to be a major issue. We do not comprehend, I think anybody in Texas, why are we not taking charge of all these building materials that have been left on the border and just finish the wall that President Trump started. We had hoped that we were going to lead, and we're not leading, so we need to make sure that that happens. Of course, election integrity. If we cannot trust our elections, it's a huge issue.
We can't get that right.
We can get that right. How can we trust? I grew up in Venezuela, so I know what it looks like when government takes charge of the election. And, once they take charge of it and they're counting the votes, there's no way to get it. I'm not sure that we can fix it there. So
Colin says it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts.
Who counts the votes, exactly. And locally, of course, we have the water issues. Of course, we have, the infrastructure. We have so many neighborhoods popping up. People are very concerned about water, traffic, that all that is created, and of course the rising taxes because of all the people moving into the district.
Jonathan?
Yeah, so as I go around the district, I always ask people, I say, what is it that keeps you up at night? And as I ask that question, I come up with basically three answers, and it comes down to freedom, security, and prosperity. So what I think the three biggest issues that are affecting not just my district and not just Central Texas, but the state of Texas, I think number one is our freedoms are under assault. We live in a state right now where businesses were shut down, churches were either forced or intimidated to close. We have people that are being having to make the decision between do they work or not work if they don't get their vaccine. These are the primary responsibility of government is to protect and defend individual rights and individual freedoms. And I think our freedoms are under assault. The second one is security. We absolutely have to get our border under control. We can't depend or rely on the federal government to do that. That means that the state of Texas is going to have to defend our borders. And that doesn't just create problems at the borders. We see those types of problems coming all the way up here in just law enforcement in general in Williamson County and in each of our districts. And the third one is prosperity. Now, this one, I think that there's actually two ways that I look at it. So one, just the prosperity of property taxes. You know, for session after session, Republicans campaign on meaningful property tax reform. And I don't think that Republicans have delivered on that. That's why I'm running in this primary. We need meaningful property tax reform. I'd like to see us transition maybe to a consumption tax, transition away from property taxes. But if we can't do that, I'd like to see our property tax value set at purchase price so that politicians don't basically get a free tax increase as our property values go up. Yeah. The second part of prosperity, though, which honestly I'm even more concerned about, is what's going on with our kids and schools. So right here, you know, HD 52, Williamson County is ground zero for the national disaster that's going on in education. We literally have two parents that were arrested in Round Rock ISD for simply speaking at an open meeting. We have two duly elected school board members that are being threatened with censure by the majority of the school board in Round Rock ISD. We have Leander with what can simply be stated as pornography in our school districts. We absolutely have to get control of our schools and our education. I think we need to move to a much more parent-centered approach to education. So that's why I'm running. It's running because of freedom, security, and prosperity.
Well, you've just answered the second question of why it is that you are running. Nubia, tell us a little bit more about why you are running.
Well, I think like most of us, we're extremely concerned. We're extremely concerned about our families, our children, and we're extremely concerned about the country. And like I said, growing up in Venezuela has allowed me really to have a perspective of how quickly you can lose your freedoms. And I think in America, we always should err in the side of freedom. Of course, as a mother of 7, a grandmother of 4 children, 4 grandchildren, I've experienced a lot in life, and I think maturity matters. I don't think I don't necessarily need to run for office, but I feel compelled to do it, and it is precisely because of my principles and my Christian values. I think we are losing the country, and it is scary to see. We're waking up to a nightmare every day where we're being told that right is wrong and wrong is right, and we're supposed to accept it. And I think we got to come to a place, and especially as the church, to say, wait a minute, you know, this garden has been given for us to take charge of, and this garden means everything. Okay. So government was a God idea, and we need leaders. We need people that truly fear God, love family, and love country. And I think I know I have those principles, and I think I could represent those principles for the Hill Country that is really about these values.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Glass, why are you running?
Well, my country's dying. And I have a grandbaby that I would love to spend some more time with, but I'm not going to pass on, if I have anything to do with it, I'm not going to pass on a totalitarian state to her and her children. And so that's the main reason I'm doing it. We live in unusual times. These are the most dire times, and this is, in my opinion, the most important Republican primary in the history of Texas.
That it is.
Because everything we hold dear is under assault. And it's an all-fronts assault, and it's hard to know where to start But I've been thinking about the creative ways to respond to this for a good little while. I started a group called Texas Constitutional Enforcement back in 2015 to address these issues, and I've been working at the legislature for the last 4 sessions on these issues. And I realized that I need to do more than just go there for free and not have a vote. I think I can do a better job with having the vote and having the voice, the magnified voice that you get as being a representative to help protect and secure the rights of Texans now and in the future. There's one other thing I will say is that I'm 65 years old, okay, and I don't need this either, right? And, you know, most people in 65 are supposed to be kicking back. I'm not going to kick back because this is my service to my country. The story of Esther means a lot to me. When Mordecai went to Esther and asked her to risk her life to save her people and said, consider that you were made for times such as these. I think every one of us needs to be considering that and figuring out how we can join the fight. This is the way I'm joining the fight, so that's why I'm doing it.
Thank you, Tom. So the next question here that I have.
Well, I'm gonna jump in here.
You're gonna say that
because I haven't been able to answer this
Okay,
question.
sorry.
But you know, very similar reasons. But you know, no one decides to run for office overnight. I think all of us have been around politics and around governance for quite a while. My role, I've always been an operations guy. So my background, I spent 20 years at Dell. I've done things politically, but they've always been IT and operations and kind of behind the scenes. I've not been a political operative, although I've thought about it for a while. For me personally, what moved the needle for me was really kind of 2 significant events. Number one was the shutdowns. Without question, the response to COVID, the response from our leaders in Austin, I couldn't stand to see what was happening. I have a daughter that is a small business owner, and literally overnight, her job was deemed non-essential, illegal, if you will. We have the pleasure of homeschooling 7 children. One of my boys, he's a social person. He likes being around friends. It's important to him. It's not just a nice thing to be around friends. He needs to be around friends. And when I saw social distancing, when I saw we homeschool, but our churches were intimidated to shut down, and he lost that social interaction, that was really where I said, okay, this is the time. And I began looking at redistricting and how that would play out. And the second thing, as we moved forward and saw what was going on with the school district, when I saw what was going on with Jeremy and with Danielle and Mary and Dustin, and I looked for Republican leaders at all levels, from the county to the state. And I didn't see anyone running to the sound of the guns. I didn't see anyone engaging in the battle. In fact, I heard some of our elected officials say, well, that's not my lane. I can't stand for that. As a family, we are proud to trace our heritage to Davy Crockett. And, we take it serious that you run to the sound of the guns. And in Williamson County, in all of Central Texas, the guns are here. And that's why I decided to throw my hat in the ring and run for office.
We had 3 candidates that did run to the sound of that gun. So Weston Martinez, Sid Miller, and Lieutenant Colonel Alan West did come to Round Rock on behalf of these gentlemen that were thrown in jail. So thank you, Jonathan, for speaking out on that.
Thank you.
All right, so let's have a little fun here. Let's lighten this up a little bit.
I'm having fun already.
I know you are. Longhorn or Aggie, Mr. Glass?
I'm the only graduate of Texas A&M in my race, and but I will say this, I have intimidating pictures of me saying I'm a little Longhorn because my family was all Longhorns. I have 3 great-great-grandfathers buried in Austin, and half of my family comes from a long line of UT people.
Big Aggies. What about you,
Do we
Ms.
only
Devine?
get those 2 choices?
If you have a third choice.
Well, I have Baylor, because I have kids that have graduated from Baylor, from A&M, from Texas State. So I'm
7
all for all of
children,
them.
7
Yes,
universities.
Yes, exactly.
grew up in Austin. I've always been a Longhorn fan, but now I'm a little bit mixed. So I do have a daughter that just graduated from A&M as an engineer. So I guess I'm just torn and confused. So maybe on this issue, I'll go ahead and I'm a gig 'em Longhorn. Can you do that?
And now that they're no longer playing each other, I
And
guess.
now they're no longer playing each other.
There you go.
We'll support both.
All right, what about crypto? What do you think about cryptocurrency?
Crypto is actually fascinating, and maybe this is a little bit of the technology geek that's going on, but one, it's a real commentary on how at risk our economy is when literally made up bits and bytes of information is potentially a more stable currency than the US dollar. So there's a whole commentary that's really bringing to light. In regards to crypto, whether it's Bitcoin or other things, I think there's some real opportunities here. I was talking to some folks in West Texas about the ability to use some of the excess energy that's being wasted as they burn off the gas in the oil production. They're able to capture that and use it for cryptocurrency, for Bitcoin mining, sort of as needed. I think from a public policy standpoint, the best thing that the state of Texas can do is to make sure that we allow crypto to be a part of the economy. Let's see how it grows. Let's see what it develops, and let it mature. And I think that's what we should do. I think it's here. It's here to stay.
Here. Definitely
And
here to stay.
the best thing that politicians can do is not mess with it.
Well, I would agree. I think erring on the side of freedom, I think we need to give opportunity, for new ideas. And obviously, this is something new, and it is here to stay. Some of my kids are actually involved in it, and I think it's here to stay. So I think people should have the opportunity to use this new opportunity for a better economics.
Very good.
Yeah.
Back in, I think it was 2016, getting ready for 2017, I started noticing that the globalists in the global banking community had this thing they called the war on cash. And I started thinking about how can we in Texas get ready for that, because it's going to be done at the federal level or at the global level to try to make us use financial services electronically and take away our cash, and then they'll try to take away any other alternative. So it's a police state issue because every financial transaction will be monitored. They'll start using the Chinese social credit system. Oh, I saw you were gambling here. I'm not sure that you need a promotion type stuff. And so I came up with an idea to add to the Texas Bill of Rights the protection of our natural right to keep in exchange our wealth in whatever form we want, whether that's digital currency, gold and silver coin, scrip, cash, etc. It is a natural right. And the thing is, if we get into the Texas Bill of Rights, we will be able to argue at the federal level about a Ninth Amendment. It's an unenumerated right at the federal level. If we enumerate it in Texas, we'll be able to say, look, this is what the Ninth Amendment was all about, federal judiciary, when the feds actually do come in. And I don't know how fast it's going to be. I have a lot of friends who think, oh, crypto, there's no way the governments can mess with it. No, you are very wrong.
That's right.
Very wrong. Already they're beginning to do these federal regulations where every transaction has to be recorded, and if not, you get punished. I mean, do you think that kind of a crypto economy can be killed pretty quickly if we have oppressive federal regulations? And so y'all have 5 platform planks in the Republican Party plank Republican Party platform that I've been involved in, and one of them is to ask for this constitutional right, the right to use cash and cash substitutes is what we call
great.
it.
Gold and
Okay.
silver.
Okay.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So something near and dear to my heart. What about roads, water, and energy? Nubia, what do you think about roads, water, and energy here in the state of Texas?
Well, it is a big issue in my district. Nearly everywhere that I block walk, people are very concerned about that. Clearly, we have invited. Texas has done so well financially, of course, that we have been encouraging people from all over the states to come to Texas and invest and create businesses, which
growth.
we absolutely love that. With that, of course, the growth on all these neighborhoods and of course the taxes that they're just going so high. There is concerns, of course, about water, not just now, but 15, 20 years from now. And, and I think obviously all this new infrastructure has to be calculated with what the concerns with water and how that's going to affect us. I think, I'm sure they're trying to do that. And I know there's a lot of plants and they're being created particularly in the hill country. But the traffic and all of that is part of it. I think it's a difficult balance. But I think
the growth is coming.
Growth is coming, so you need to address it. Yeah, you got to create the infrastructure for the growth,
That's right.
especially for inviting people to come with their businesses to Texas.
I think this is something that's actually a specific reason why, as Central Texas conservative leaders, because this affects all of Central Texas in many ways disproportionately to the rest of the state. Look, we have the massive growth. Williamson County, fastest growing county in the nation. Yes. And so I think that as a forum or as an organization, we need to make sure that we're looking at this regionally and that we have the infrastructure from our roads. Looking at water, Samsung is coming down, and they're already saying that there's not enough water to manage Samsung. I know there's things going on in Hutto with subterranean reservoirs. From a state level, we're probably going to have to bring more water on board. We're probably going to have to fund some desalinization on the coast so that we can, create more water. We're certainly going to have to pipe water from other areas. So this is a huge thing that disproportionately affects Central Texas. And in regards to energy, look, we all shuddered in the cold a year ago, and thank God the winter this winter has not been as bad, but we've not increased our capacity. We still have, we are growing exponentially, and our energy capacity has not been increased. And by the way, renewable is not a reliable energy source. That is not baseline energy. So we have to we actually have to increase our baseline energy resources, and we certainly don't need to spend any more money subsidizing technology and energy resources that are not going to be reliable. They need to compete on the free market. If they can be reliable, they need to do that.
Mr. Glass, roads, water, and energy.
Yep, of course, this is the issue my district is talking about, all of these issues, and it's all related to growth. One of the first things that I've talked to my constituents, I said, what can I as a legislature do about this? And they said, how about we start by not subsidizing moving big corporations here who bring their employees who may or may not want to be in Texas. We're happy to have people come to Texas because of the freedom, but we don't want unwilling people coming here wanting to change it. And that the subsidies, which were started under Rick Perry, and we finally got rid of them. They're phasing out at the end of this year, but we got to make sure we're not subsidizing growth. People should come to Texas because we've got a great work environment and a great political climate. We don't need to subsidize it, and by subsidizing, we're accelerating the growth that we're having to deal with. A lot of it's the subsidies is creating some of this growth, not just the great environment. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'm being told by my constituents says, when we have growth here and there's a whole bunch of new subdivisions or even businesses that come here, I wish I, as a taxpayer, didn't have to pay for that. I think development ought to pay for itself. So, one of the things they're telling me is that Florida, which, by the way, I'm embarrassed that Florida has always beaten us. So that's a governor thing to a certain extent. But Florida has what they call impact fees that say, okay, developers, when you develop something, you need to kick in to pay for the infrastructure that's necessary to provide this, and so that it passed on to people who are moving here and not to the people who already live here and already suffering from a lot of other things. So there's that, and then on the water, we do have to figure out new sources of water. We have growth, and of course, if I'm going to protect the irreplaceable aquifers under my district, which I have a keen responsibility to do, when my wells in my district are dropping hundreds of feet because of this stuff, we've got to figure out a better way. And I like desalinization. I think we can desalinate brackish waters under Texas lands. How about it, Land Commissioner? Make some money for that permanent school fund type of stuff. So we've got to get as creative as we can to figure out how to meet the needs of growth as we go in a way that also maintains our liberties, our property rights, and our quality of life. So
Very good.
yeah, thanks.
All right. So the state of South Carolina has recently proposed a bill that would make it illegal for certain institutions to ask a person for their COVID-19 vaccination status. Would you support similar legislation in Texas, Nubia? How do you feel about that?
I'm totally against any mandates. Absolutely. I think, again, I always believe we need to err on the side of freedom, and it is not the role of government to or the businesses for that matter, to mandate any medical procedures. So absolutely against it.
Freedom.
Freedom, yes.
I think this also goes to kind of the issue of crony capitalism, because, what we've got is, the government's not asking you, your employer is asking you. Well, the reason they're doing that is because of the crony capitalism, the deals that have been made. So, again, the number one responsibility of government is to protect the individual freedoms and the rights of the people. And there's no circumstance that anyone, government, school, employer, should be asking you or me or anyone else what our vaccine or any other health status is.
Tom?
Same question,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the founders. They gave us wonderful instructions about how to run this place in our Constitution and even more fundamentally in the Declaration. One of the words used in the Declaration says all men are created equal, have certain unalienable rights. I've looked that word up. I know what it means.
Can't be taken away.
It means you can't bargain it away. And it's usually associated with bodily autonomy. You can't sell yourself into slavery. You can't make a contract with your employer that says you can have cruel and unusual punishment visited on you as a term of condition of deal. You can't agree to say, I will work for you if I have sex with my employer. Those are the unalienable rights that you cannot bargain away. And one of those is you can't bargain away the right to decline vaccination. Also, one of the other planks I have in the Republican platform that I introduced in 2020 was the one that says we have the right to decline vaccinations. And I want to put it in our Bill of Rights. I want to make it explicit instead of having to argue implicit. So that's the main thing about that. Here's one other thing. You talked about the corporations, Jonathan. Okay. I've actually studied the history of American history, and I've read all about the Boston Tea Party. Do you guys remember who the action of the Boston Tea Party was visited upon? It wasn't the government. It was a tool of the government, an oppressive tool of the government, a corporation that had a monopoly from the government that was doing the bidding of the tyrant and visiting that on the American people. It was the British East India Company. And they went and dumped their tea into the deal. And of course, the government came back and said, you're going to have to pay for that. So the bottom line is, corporations can be willing tools of tyranny, and they are increasing. The world corporations and what's going on right now, and you're right, the governor started doing this, and the county judges in the big cities in this COVID tyranny started using you can call it fascist or whatever. They're using the employers of Texas and the big businesses of Texas to visit the tyranny on us instead of doing the hard, dirty work that the government should do. And our framers knew that when a corporation becomes a tool of tyranny, that they can go back against them. I do too.
We had just a couple of questions left. Jonathan, what is your assessment of the Republican legislative priorities from this past session?
We had 10 legislative priorities, and I think Chairman West, at the time he was chairman, he added an 11th about executive overreach. I think it's really a failure. So let's do good things. Heartbeat bill, no question, that was good. And I fully support.
Step in the right direction.
Fully support anything that defends and protects the life of the unborn. I think constitutional carry was another good move. It was a significant step in the right direction. But we got nothing on executive overreach. We got nothing on prohibiting the mutilation of genitals of minors. In fact, our current House Speaker killed that bill and allowed the Democrats to shut down the House so it wouldn't come up. As far as election integrity is concerned, A lot of sound and fury about it, but at the end of the day, it used to be a felony.
And we lost.
And now it's a misdemeanor. So, I think, we'll see what the Republicans, what we all come up with at the state convention, but I think it's going to be very telling that almost every one of those priorities are going to be the same priorities for the 88th. And I want to go on record, not only do I support the legislative priorities of the party, but I will only support a speaker that is willing to make the commitment that every single priority has, at a minimum, an opportunity to be heard on the floor of the House.
Great.
I totally agree. I think the priorities, I'm very proud of what we have as priorities in our party, because I think it really speaks about the heart of Republicans. The issues are really the social issues that are very important. And of course, election integrity is at the top, and religious freedom, and, all the others that we have mentioned. And I think it really speaks about the involvement of the people in Texas and how much we care for these hardcore issues. Unfortunately, I cannot understand either how did we not protected children from mutilation in Texas. I think it's outrageous. We need to continue. I think as a new class, we are going to be very strong about uniting forces. That is our prayer, of course, that we can unite forces and really encourage to be able to pass with strong, with force. I think we need to come. I think we had a conversation about, God willing, if we get elected, we'll have a real strong freshman class. And my prayer is that we are able to really lock arms and come as a united front and don't break apart, but really be united so that we can really, truly get all these legislative priorities through.
Tom, I know this is near and dear to your heart.
Sure. I created a group called Texas Legislative Priorities on Facebook so that we would have a community that could track the legislative priorities and work for it at the legislature. And, of course, I've helped work on that. One of the things I was very honored is that Mark Ramsey, the head of the Legislative Priorities Committee at the convention in 2020, nominated me and then gave the speech for me when I was honored with one of the Texas Scorecard Texas Conservative Leader Awards for 2021, in part because of the legislative parties. I agree so much with Nubia that one of the ways I say this, a man's got to know his limitations. You cannot do everything. When everything's coming at you super fast and they're doing an all-fronts assault on you, it's hard to figure out what to do first. And I plan to be involved, whether I'm the nominee or not. I plan to be involved in the legislative parties process. We've got some important decisions to make at the state convention this coming June. And I do think I want, just like Nubia was saying, I want to get this freshman class to help change the culture of the Texas House to make it where they're less beholden to the Democrats, less beholden to the special interest, and more beholden to the principles, priorities, and platform of the Republican Party and the voters of our districts. Yes.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, does the state of Texas have the right to secure its border without permission from federal government? And if so, what role do you see the legislative having in securing our border? Nubia, how do you feel about the border?
Very strongly. I think if we don't have a secure border, we don't have a nation. And we have to make sure that, again, I have mentioned already, we have the authority for a border. I don't think we need to ask permission from the federal government. I think it's been super disappointing for all of us that Texas has not led in that area. And I come from countries where you have to have walls to protect your property, yes. But it doesn't stop there. You have to have chains on your doors, and you have to have bars on your windows. So the idea that that a border, that a wall is racist, which I guess we haven't heard as much about it anymore, it's absurd, because we all understand that walls and protection to our border is essential. I think it's a huge human tragedy, mm-hmm. because the reality is that as long as we keep it open, it allows people to come. It allows people to risk their lives. There is men and women and children who are dying in this process. It's a huge tragedy. And what is happening here on the border is not the U.S.'s fault. What has happened is, of course, on all these countries, they get foreign aid that really never gets to the people, and I think what we need to encourage is international investment. I heard actually one of the presidents of Central America made probably one of the best comments I've ever heard on that, and he was taking responsibility about the fact that if we have international investments, these countries will be able to provide jobs for people, and they'll be able to stay in their countries.
Yes.
And because it is the responsibility of every nation for their people. The only reason people leave is because they are desperate, they don't have jobs. So if these countries can provide that, then they don't have to migrate to the USA. People want to stay in their countries, and it's hard to uproot from your country, from your nation, from your language, from your family. So I think that would, if we wanted to help any other country in the world, international investment will be the best. But absolutely, do whatever we can to discourage this such a destructive thing for so many people.
We've got to get back to a sovereign state and
Sovereign
a sovereign
state,
nation.
absolutely.
So what do you think about that, Mr. Glass?
Okay. I created a group called Texas Constitutional Enforcement back in 2015. I think I've mentioned that. One of the key tenets of that is that Texas is a sovereign state. We, the people of Texas, are the bosses around here. We're the bosses of our elected officials in Texas, and then through our elected officials, we're the bosses of the federal government. They don't get to tell us what we get to do with our sovereignty. If you are asking permission to do something, you're not acting like a sovereign. I want a governor in these trying times who understands that he is the governor of a sovereign state that doesn't have to ask permission of the federal government, and that knows that the Supreme Court is not our supreme ruler. The United States Constitution is very clear that when there's an invasion, we can take care of business. As a sovereign state, we get to decide what the Constitution means, and if the Supreme Court disagrees, if we have the courage, we can do what's necessary to take care of the citizens of Texas. And so it starts with law enforcement. It starts with leadership at the top to make sure that we do this. I mean, one of the things is more than just the fact that the federal government is not enforcing the laws that they're supposed to do. The federal government has gone into business with the cartels and the human trafficking business, and they're using our taxpayer dollars to fund it. It's time that we had a governor that understands that, and we as legislatures need to give every bit of resources and every bit of moral support we can to a governor who will actually do something about it instead of do Operation Photo Op.
That's exactly right. Jonathan?
You know, I'll just go ahead and come out and say it. I know we're all passionate about our race, but I'll simply say I want a warrior, not a lawyer, for governor. So as much as I'm running for my race, I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm fully supporting Colonel Allen West to be the governor. And it is because of his stand on the border. We are the United States of America. We have this right and this responsibility. You know, I was talking to some military leaders and some planners, and we know how to secure the border. This is not a difficult job. We've done it. We did it under Perry. We did it again under Trump. So we know what to do to make sure that these criminal activities are not occurring on our border. Now, I do think that we need to go ahead and make a bigger commitment. Texas should never, ever be in this position again. Right. It's actually probably one of the few things of new spending that I would actually be open to. I would be open to.
If this is not a rainy day, I don't know what is.
Exactly. We need to have a long-term plan to make sure that our border is always secure and that we never have to ask permission from the federal government. It's going to be expensive. I mean, estimates are anywhere from $20 to $30 million a month to secure it. That is rainy money well spent for the border.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the Central Texas Leadership Forum for today. Thank you for joining us. Now you know all three of these new freshman candidates, and let's get out and support them in their elections.
We got a country to save, a state to save, our liberty to save.
We do.
You know, before we go, hold on.
Yeah.
Because this is a unique forum. You know, we've all been in different forums where we've got other candidates in our primary, and that's great. Why do you think having this forum? Why do you? I'm going to start with Tom. What's important about a Central Texas Leadership Forum? We're each running our own races. We all want to be freshmen. Why did you come here, and why do you think this group is important?
I got invited.
I did too.
It has to do with we need to change the culture of the Texas House, so we need to start talking to each other. Each one of us has competitive races. We got to make it through the gauntlet to get there. But if we do make it the gauntlet, you guys are the kind of people I want to be there with to be able to save Texas with. And so that's the main reason I came. And the other thing is, in Central Texas, we are facing the issues of growth in ways that many other places in Texas are not. And it's all these the issues of property taxes, water, energy, et cetera, that we do need to be working together on. So that's why I'm here.
Well, I'm here because I believe there is a strength in numbers, and because we have the same values, we have the same core values. We understand that America is great because of faith, family, and freedom. We can then work together. It is my hope, and of course my prayer, that as a new class, we are able to hold arms and to really, more than hold, lock arms and become a force to contend, because we should not be breaking apart. I think we would be able to truly impact the House, and I think we really will represent our values, not only the values of our districts, which I think are very similar, and the issues that we're all concerned, but what Texas is about. To lead in Texas, I do believe the local action has national impact, and I think this is why we feel so strongly about this. So I'm very grateful to have been invited. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Marcia, thank you for putting this together, helping it. I just agree. I agree with you guys. I think it's extremely important that this is going to be probably the largest freshman class in the 88th legislature. And I think that we have an opportunity to set a new tone. There's a lot done in the name of tradition. And I think that it's time for some new traditions. Not the least of which is the majority decides which party is going to have chairmanships. I think there's real substantive issues that need to be done. And, I'm doing everything in my race to win my primary, and I ask for your support and your vote, and I really want to serve with you guys.
I want to say one more thing. When I talk about changing the culture of the Texas House, I'm not going in to bomb throw or to say that the guys that are already there are bad guys or anything like that. I'm going to work with people. When I got asked in one of the forums that I was in my district by a former county chair of the party and a former SREC member, she said, "Well, Tom, will you caucus with the Texas Freedom Caucus when you get there?" And I said, "I want to reserve the right to see what the lay of the land is." I'm sad that there was even need for a Texas Freedom Caucus in the past. What I want the Republican caucus to be the Freedom Caucus in the Texas House, and I'm ready to work with the guys in the Republican caucus to make sure that we get there in a respectful, collaborative way. So, yeah, but it starts with us going and giving that new energy and leadership.
Absolutely.
I would like to add something, and even though in the Republican Party we don't make issue of race because we know it should be merit, I have to also say that as someone who comes from a Latin background, and I've been a proud American for almost 3 decades, we in the Republican Party should be the ones that are reaching out to the Latino community specifically. I think, in the platform, our platform says that we protect the sanctity of life and the dignity of work. I think most people come from other countries to work very hard. So I think we need to protect that. But also, as I've worked with the Pastors Council, which is what I currently do, I've gone to so many different churches and many Latino churches, and they want somebody who represents their values to come and speak their language. Well, I can tell you that there's no one in the House. If I were elected to this position, I would be the first woman, a first Christian woman, Latino, conservative, Republican woman.
Amen.
And I am praying that I am able to represent those values, because they are our values, but they are also the values of the Latino community. So I think we need to. It is the culture we're losing the fastest, and those values, and we need to reach out and represent those values. So, thank you.
Very well done. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to coming back to visit with you another time in the future.